welcome back to the Lead Lamp podcast. This week we're on the road a little bit, so it's a little bit different of a setting. We have Max Justice with Setas Eternal Living and Setas Mushrooms in Greencastle. So we made a little bit of a road trip today, but today we're going to learn a little bit about, or a lot about, mushrooms and what you're doing with them, all the different things like fungal related that you're turning into awesome products. Not just what you see behind us, but some edible things and a couple other things. So let's boil it down to the start and kind of give us like an overview of what you got going on.
Sure. So Setas Mushrooms was established in January 2020. Many of you might recognize that date. It was when COVID came to town. Great time to start a business, let me tell you.
Especially at home. Yeah.
Right. We outgrew our first home and had to move here to the farm. We started out growing, well, Kat started growing out mushrooms in our garage. And she was growing out 40 pounds of mushrooms a week. And that quickly grew because we had customers that were asking for our gourmet mushrooms.
Okay.
And you're gonna see they're really phenomenal looking. In fact, that's a lot of chefs come to us just because of the look, the texture, and the quality of our mushrooms. So that was in January 2020. We moved here to this farm in Greencastle, March of 2022.
Okay.
So we're just coming up on our third anniversary
Here.
here at this farm. And that's another reason to celebrate our grand feast on 12 April is to promote our third anniversary. Right now we're growing about 400 pounds of gourmet mushrooms a week. And in addition to mushrooms, we also grow alternatives. We grow alternatives to concrete, plastic, insulation, and coffins.
So you do building material, packing material.
Correct.
And then end of life products.
Correct.
Okay. And then real quick, let's go back. You mentioned your feast. You're gonna have a grand feast.
Yes.
April 12th.
Correct.
And then what are the details with that before we get too far into it?
Super excited. April 12th, we are feeding 1,000 people dinner for free. No need to bring your checkbook, although we will be selling all kinds of stuff as well as many of our vendors. But you can come have dinner on us. Now, dinner's from 5 to 7, although the event's from 2 to 7 p.m. Dinner's not till 5. In fact, I gotta give the food truck vendors some time for you to go get their food. Otherwise, when you have a gourmet mushroom meal, you're gonna be filled up. Now, in addition to that gourmet mushroom meal, we're going to have, I'm targeting 50 vendors. The Kanakachig Institute is one of our vendors, just about a half mile down the road, where they demonstrate what life was like in the 1700s. So they will have a little demonstration here, as well as we're gonna have several farmers market style event. We can get salsas, salts, soaps, clothing, and a whole bunch of other stuff, trees. It's a really long list. Right here on the farm. We're gonna have live music. We've got a duet. We have 2 bands that I'm really proud of. They're both banjo bands. One is all adults and the other's all kids, and they both do a phenomenal version of Psycho Killer. So come on out and have a good time, listen to some good music. The Rotary will be here, so it is very much a community event. Proud to be a member of the local Rotary as well as the International Rotary Club. And I'm sure there's a whole host of other things that I'm leaving out. But come down for a lot of good food and fun.
That'll be awesome. April 12th, 5 to 7.
Correct.
Okay. All right, we'll make sure we put that, we'll put it in our show
I've
notes
got
too.
a flyer for you all to
We'll
put on your website.
We'll do it.
Great.
All right, so let's get back into this. So you were doing it at home, you've expanded, and now you're here at the farm. You're doing a variety of products, anywhere from food, edible things, to building materials, packing materials, end-of-life stuff like we said before we start talking about the event. But let's kind of walk through the progression of it. So you started out with things you could eat, obviously, gourmet mushrooms, and then what did you evolve into next? How did you realize, well, there's more to it than this? How do you make the step from, okay, we're gonna sell it to some restaurants and chefs,
right,
to you're gonna make concrete alternatives or packing material with it?
So really it started at our first place in West Virginia. We were growing 40 pounds of mushrooms a week and we were taking that to market. But we weren't selling 40 pounds of mushrooms a week. We were selling more like 20, 25 pounds of mushrooms a week. So every week we were taking 10, 15, 20 pounds of mushrooms and throwing them out back. And I was like, we're taking good food and we're throwing it away. It was driving me nuts. So I started thinking, okay, what else can we do? Well, right before that time period of my life, I became a pacifist. I'm also a U.S. Marine. Well, when I became a pacifist, it means I stopped killing things. And when I did, that means I stopped eating a lot of meat or anything with a soul. And I used to do a lot of deer hunting, lots of deer hunting. And I made my own jerky. Well, when I stopped deer hunting, then I wasn't getting my jerky fix.
More jerky, yeah.
Right. So I found mushrooms, in particular oyster mushrooms, make a great alternative for deer meat in our mushroom jerky. In our jerky.
They
now it's our
replicate
mushroom
the
jerky.
texture.
Very much so.
Similar, okay.
Replicates the texture, the taste, the consistency. In fact, that's one of the big things a lot of people really are like, I get what they call the wow factor. And so normally about every time when somebody tries it and then they go, wow, I thank them. And so that's really what started us down that path. And so we got into making jerky. Well, we were still throwing some mushrooms away. Some really good mushrooms are like lion's mane, shiitake, which have tons of health benefits.
Right, those are the ones you hear about at all your restaurants. Yeah.
Pretty much. Now, lion's mane is a neurotropic, meaning it's one of the few substances known to humanity that you can ingest that helps promote the growth of brain and nerve cells. So literally, I found a mushroom that can make you smarter and calm your nerves to deal with your family. Now, who wouldn't want to eat a mushroom like that? And really, that's what got me into, or got us into mushrooms. It was in March of 2018 that the love of my life had a massive hemorrhagic stroke. And while we were in the hospital, she really didn't know who I was. She just knew, don't trust the guy in the hoodie. And I was the guy in the hoodie. So after spending over a week in the hospital and they were pumping her full of these drugs, we got home and she wanted to kill herself. And so I said, hey, would you be interested in trying something different? And the reason why I went to mushrooms is because I was just starting my PhD journey at the time. Well, what's a good PhD student know to do? Research. Yeah. So I found a 5-year DARPA study. Now, DARPA is the Advanced Research Agency of the DoD. Being a former Marine, Army soldier, and I spent over a decade in the intelligence community, I know that DARPA doesn't do anything for 5 years if there's not some merit to it.
Right. They're not investing that much time into it if it's
exactly
if it's a dead end. Yeah.
They're millions of dollars every year. And I think the Doge would even probably keep them around today if they were still involved. But anyways, Paul Stamets is the gentleman who was leading that study with DARPA. And in fact, he's written several books. One I'm reading right now called Fantastic Fungi, which happens to also be a Netflix special called Fantastic Fungi. So if you want to learn more about Paul Stamets and what other people in the industry are doing, I highly recommend checking out the book as well as the Netflix special. Paul had proven that lion's mane, being that nootropic, helps to promote the growth of brain and nerve cells. So I convinced Kat, the love of my life, to take this mushroom capsule. And within 3 days, she noticed a difference. She could cognitively feel a difference in clarity of thought.
And a bunch of other things to pump it into them.
In less than a week after being back home, she stopped taking drugs that she got from Big Pharma, and she didn't want to kill herself anymore. All because of lion's mane. So I truly do owe my happiness to lion's mane mushrooms.
That's amazing. So yeah, I mean, and that's just coming out of the earth. It's not something that is coming out of a pharmaceutical lab. Yeah. And
the good news is you can find that particular mushroom all over Pennsylvania. In fact, it's really, I think it's all 48 continental U.S. Not aware of it being in Hawaii. But you can really find it pretty much everywhere, especially here in Pennsylvania. It grows in trees just all over the place. If you're going to be looking for it, it has and you'll get to see it on video here in a little bit, but it looks like a lion's mane. It's a white puffy thing. And if you put it under your chin, people will think you have a lion's mane. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So lion's mane's a neurotropic, helps to promote the growth of brain cells. I gave it to my wife. And then we got into shiitake mushrooms. Now, shiitake is great for your immunity system, helps to fight off respiratory illnesses like influenza, as well as COVID, SARS, and who knows what the next one's going to be. In fact, it even fends off smallpox, which it's just, I'm constantly learning and finding out more and more. So shiitake is a phenomenal mushroom that people should ingest, whether they eat it, take it through a powder, or a tincture. But having lion's mane and shiitake daily will absolutely help improve your health and well-being.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's a lower risk thing. It's not like you probably have to eat a lot of it to have a problem, you know, and as long as you're using it in the way that it's suggested, it's a safe way to take care of things that otherwise would be harmful.
Correct,
yeah.
Right. In fact, mushrooms have one of the lowest rates for people having some type of an adverse reaction to. You tend to hear more people say, oh, I'm allergic to mushrooms, when they just don't know how to eat them or they've never had them before,
right.
And it scares them.
Right.
Because they hear about this one mushroom in particular called Amanita muscaria, which is the death cap mushroom. Mm-hmm. And people are like, oh, if you take this, you'll die. Well, you actually have to eat like 40 pounds or something of it to die. And really, most people will stop eating mushrooms long before you get to that toxic level.
Right. Okay.
Now, there's not saying that there aren't mushrooms that aren't going to kill you.
Right.
But
you can't just go out and pick one and eat it without knowing what you're
in fact,
looking for.
In South America and Central and in Europe, Amanita muscaria is used more for psychedelics than it is for killing people. So there's a lot of misconceptions, misnomers about mushrooms. One of them is the taste. They think, oh, I've had one mushroom, I've had them all. There are more varieties of mushrooms than there are plants and trees combined. And they almost all have a different taste, different texture, different consistency. Like chestnut mushrooms. It's this beautiful little mushroom, has these little white spots on top, a nice brown dome. And that actually has a nut-like flavor. It's my personal favorite to eat. In fact, I tell people all the time, if you have it as a side dish with your eggs, your eggs will taste different. In fact, I think they'll taste better with chestnut mushrooms on the side. You can put it in your omelet too. Now, lion's mane has a seafood or lobster-like flavor. That makes a great alternative to crab cakes. And in fact, at our grand feast from last year and our grand opening the year before that, we were serving crab cakes or alternatives to crab cakes with our lion's mane cakes right here, and people had a very, very hard time telling
distinguishing them.
Oh yeah. Not saying that it's an actual replacement, but it's close enough. Yeah. Okay. And there's many, many other mushrooms that are like that. Right. We were talking about like my jerky. You can have a hard time telling the difference between meat. We have another oyster mushroom called king trumpet. We shred that up and we put it into a pulled pork mix. Okay. People have a hard time telling there's no pork in the pulled pork.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Huh. I would never expect that the variety of foods. Now, there's other no meat alternatives that you hear about, but they're not as natural. You know, there's a lot of oils.
A lot of them are highly processed, which aren't any better for us.
Maybe worse than the lower grade version of the meat you were trying to eat.
Correct.
To eat the alternative non-meat version.
Right.
Not from the mushroom. I mean from the processed version.
Right. The ultra processed alternative.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. So there's a lot of different, obviously, flavors and varieties of mushrooms that you can eat and use alternatives for food, or just as a completely separate thing for an ailment or whatever it is that there's a lot of options that are around for taking care of your health through natural means like a fungi.
Correct.
Now, let's get over to talking about some of the other products you make with them. So you covered a lot of the foods and items you make with that are edible, but let's go through the non-edible versions. I mean, maybe you can eat them, I don't know. You probably don't want to.
So the mushroom that we're using, or the fungus, we're using a reishi strain or fungus for our alternatives. But if I can get you all to come over this way just a little bit.
Now that's for the reishi strain you said is for the you're not eating those types.
Well, so reishi is not really an edible mushroom,
Okay.
but it's a fantastic medicinal mushroom.
Okay.
A lot of people, especially in the Far East, call it the longevity mushroom.
Okay.
It has anti-tumor, which also means anti-cancer properties. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's really great for helping with some autoimmune
Gotcha.
diseases, but not all. So if you're going to take reishi, you should check with your doctor. Although if you're going to check with your doctor, I ask one thing. Also ask your doctor, when's the last time they've taken a nutrition course?
Gotcha.
'Cause
Okay.
Unfortunately, most doctors don't believe, or medical doctors don't believe that food's medicine.
Right.
I firmly believe that food's medicine and have a lot of more than anecdotal data.
Unfortunately, it's like a lot of the health industry subscribes to, if you have to prescribe it for it to be able to be considered a medicinal,
Right.
not necessarily something that's just naturally available. Right.
And come to
But
find
that's a
out,
whole different.
Yeah.
That's a whole different rabbit hole. We don't have to go down.
and we're going to be going down that rabbit hole in a little bit
Okay,
whenever
good.
we show you cordyceps. So we'll
Gotcha.
talk about that. We'll save that. But the reason why we came over here, so this is where we grow some of our alternatives. So this is our alternative to our concrete paver.
Okay.
Notice how light that is.
Yeah.
Now, you can see the little corners like kind of dinged out of it. That's because I'm constantly whipping it at people. But yeah, right. But really, you can't break these, folks. And you see how light these are. Here's a brick, and these are. If I get enough bricks, I want to park a John Deere on it for our grand feast.
So what's the longevity of them for like walking on?
So
Or like
if
scuffing 'em
you
up.
install this like an actual brick paver, meaning that you put in your sand base, you're going to have roughly a 2 to 3 inch sand base. Then you're going to put this over top, and you're going to make sure that it's sitting in the base very firmly. And then you're going to put sand all around it, pack it just like you would a regular paver. Now, if you do that, you've given the nature plenty of time, or you've given nature the option or ability to blow across to take the water off of it. If you take the water off it and let it seep down the sides into the sand, it will last for decades outside.
Nice.
But that's if it's not setting in a pool of water, or if it doesn't
Right.
have something around it that holds the moisture. That's why you pack it in sand. It lets the moisture go down. Now in our coffins, or like this is our alternative to an urn. Now you could also say that this was be a planter. We have several planters as well in different shapes. But you could just simply take a pencil, poke a hole through that, and put a tree above it. And then you take the ashes from your loved one, put it inside. And now there's potential that they could live hundreds of years as a tree. Now, the reason why I say potential is because really what's left after you cremate someone, it's not ash, as we call it. It's actually carbon. We've charred it so much, especially after cremation, that there's no biological activity left in that ash.
Right. It's just the things that are, there's no more energy left
Correct.
in there. It's just the leftover
And
carbon.
so it's actually worthless to plant a tree in that ash, because then it'll never grow. Now, one reason why you'll want this type of an urn, or now this is our infant or pet coffin. Feel
Okay.
that?
Oh, yeah.
So in our infant or pet coffin, in fact, I had my bull mastiff. He was, we had to put him down at 51 pounds. So bull mastiff, very large animal.
Large, yeah.
And he withered down to almost nothing. And we took the lid from my first human coffin. We cut it in half, buried him inside it. And this August will be his 2-year anniversary, where I'm going to exhume him, and all I expect to find is the metal on his dog collar. That's it. I've buried a chicken in one of my small pet coffins, and after a year's time, the only thing I was able to find were 3 vertebrae and 2 thigh bones, and that is it. Nothing else.
So what's the outside coating on this?
So now on this particular model, that is milk paint.
Okay.
You ever hear milk paint?
No, but I'm going to learn.
I
yeah.
never heard of milk paint either. come to find out, it's made from just that milk, water, and it makes. Now this is, you can see there's a little bit of a texture, but you don't see that until you get up close. This is one straight out of our oven, but as is no, that's painted as well. But
so this is how they come before they're painted.
Correct.
Okay.
So not too much difference. Now this is my large pet coffin. This is our medium. And then I have a smaller pet coffin as well. In fact, it's on the shelf back there. Okay. But what we do is we take hemp hurd. Now, this is what's left of the hemp plant. I have a farm in Virginia that will give me all of their leftover from after a harvest. It's a CBD farm. They only want the bud, the flower. That's what's on the end.
So this is all waste for them.
Exactly. In fact, they would every year put this into a big burn pile and light a match. So I've taken this off their hands, and what we do, the outside here is hemp fiber, and the very inside, in the core, is called hemp hurd. And we take that hemp hurd, and we break it down, and then we sterilize that hemp hurd. And then once it's sterilized, we introduce mycelium to it. You'll get to see our mycology laboratory here shortly. But we introduce mycelium to it, and within a couple weeks' time, it's colonized all throughout the bag of hemp. And then we take it out and we pack it into our mold. Now this is one of our molds where we make a planter. And we will fill it full of our hemp with mycelium. And in 5 days, I've grown a planter, I've grown alternative concrete pavers, bricks, pet coffins, and even human coffins. So I can grow a human coffin in as little as 5 days.
Wow.
Now, that's from going into the mold.
Right.
So it actually takes about 3 weeks before that.
From raw materials to
from the time it comes into the door into this farm to 4 weeks later, I can grow a coffin.
Wow. That's now, I don't know how that works. I'm sure we'll see a little bit more of it later.
Sure.
But when you do like a batch, I'm just gonna say a batch because I don't know what's relative to that. Can you produce more than like one product out of? You're not making one batch for one coffin. You're able to make a bunch of products out of one thing from raw materials until the final time they go out. It's not one product at a time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a couple long poles in the tent there.
Okay.
In fact, this is where I'm actually looking for investors. So if anybody's interested out there and wants to be an investor in a great startup, please let me know. But those long poles that we have, one is power. Right now I have 10 kV of power coming into this barn. Well, the chief engineer at West Penn Power came over one day and said, "Hey, you know your transformer is sometimes at 350% capacity?"
It's redlining.
Like, well, that's not a good thing. So right now we are working on trying to get in a 100 kV system for power. Okay. So power will enable me to do more sterilizing all at once. Okay. Right now I'm pretty tapped out in the amount of power they have. Correct. That's one. Okay. Another choke point that I have is molds. So right now this little plastic mold, there's two of them here. This little plastic mold, I can buy this mold for under $10. Not too shabby. And I can use this hundreds of times. But I need molds for this bad bear. Right. Now, making these are not easy. So the company wants to make several of them. They don't want to make just one. So for the minimum order I can get is 8, and it's going to cost me about 60 grand. So another big choke point. Is our molds, because, and I'll show you my molds in a little bit on the other side of the barn here, but we make our own molds. And frankly, I'll be honest, this is a little bit more than a prototype. It's beyond a prototype. We've actually had people buried in our coffins. Now this was a coffin that wasn't fully grown out. And frankly, we just started growing coffins last year. So we're still somewhat learning. But here's a good coffin that was fully colonized and grown out, as well as the next one to it. And these are ready to be used and purchased today. Now, oh shoot, you had the question you asked.
Oh, just like if you're doing what I said was like a batch. I don't know what that means for you, but what could you do with like one run?
I can, right now, because another long pole in the tent we have is our oven size.
Okay.
So in our oven, which we only have to get our oven up to about 165 degrees in Fahrenheit. Okay. It's not like it has to be very hot. Because in fact, if we get it too hot, it makes these things shrink too quick and then they crack.
They lose moisture too fast.
Correct.
Probably. Okay.
So we want to do it really slow. It takes us about 18 to 20 hours to cook or petrify one coffin. Now, once we've petrified it, it stopped this white stuff, the mycelium. It stops it from continuing to grow. Okay. And it won't grow again until it gets moist. So having it here out in the open is not the ideal environment, nor is up above whenever we first came in. In fact, up above where you first saw the coffins, we are going to make that an enclosed room, and I'm going to keep it dehumidified. Now, mushrooms, for the most part, love humidity.
Right.
That's why we have to keep it dehumidified, because if not, yes, a mushroom will grow.
These are more like a seed, basically. Like if you get a packet of seeds that are dried, they're inactive until they've been reactivated. So these will sit inactive until activated again.
Right, and it gets activated by placing a body inside, and we'll place that body on top of a layer of moss. Just like we showed in the pet or infant coffin. That layer of moss, retains a lot of water, but it doesn't fight for it. Mycelium will fight for it.
Gotcha.
It will eat anything and everything to get to the liquid. That's why mycelium, it will even break apart concrete. It won't eat steel, but it eats the rust that's left behind from steel.
Okay.
So eventually the water from the outside world will make that steel rust, which then the mycelium will go eat what's remaining. So that's why we say fungus or mushrooms will eat the world, because they truly will.
Eventually they'll take over, yeah.
Now when you put a human body inside, human body is like 70% water weight. So that's a lot of water to go back to feed the mycelium. And although artificial intelligence is telling me it takes 10 years for this coffin to entirely subsume a human body, I think it actually will happen in about 3.
Okay.
So 3, no more than 10 years, and whomever is inside will be back to nature. 100%.
Right. There'll be no trace left of that.
None. Because frankly, and I ask your viewers, in fact, please put in the comments below, why do we bury people in steel coffins? I'd love to know. Do you have any idea why?
I will just do a wild guess, very uneducated guess, but I'll say just because that's what we're told to do whenever you're at the funeral home. Like that's the option you're given. And you don't think anything of it because you're in a moment where you're just like, I just got to get it over with. But unfortunately, probably more people don't pre-plan it, so then they just are dealt with the options there. They don't research an option like this.
So my mother had 6 kids, and between the 7 of us, it's only my oldest brother and I left. I say this because whenever my older brother, who was also my best friend and father figure, when he died, I was in total shock. I wasn't thinking straight. Right. I was like, oh shit, now I got to bury him. Sorry for their swearing kids.
That's okay.
But anyways, so because tradition says you put someone into a steel coffin, well, guess what I did? I put him in a steel coffin. I look back and I say, why?
Right.
And then in March of 2018, I told you about the love of my life having a massive hemorrhagic stroke. Well, in June of 2018, I lost my little sister from Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. And when we were at the funeral procession, I asked the mortuary director, I'm like, hey, I'm just a curious kind of guy. What kind of filter do y'all put on the flue stack? Because we cremated her.
Right.
He just laughed at me. He said, we don't put a filter on the flue stack.
It's just all...
So in other words, every time we turn someone or something into a crispy critter, it goes up the flue stack for the rest of us to breathe in.
Huh.
So when I think about my little sister, one of the last acts that she had chose to do, and that we did with her, and then I think about my brother and the rest of my family members, we weren't really being good stewards of the earth. And I wanted to do something different. And I said, I'm not going to do that for myself. Yeah. In fact, now I have it as a goal is I want to remove the entire carbon footprint of my entire family tree. And I've done an analysis for my coffin. The carbon footprint for, this is the only carbon negative option for burial. Now, if there's another option for negative carbon option for burial, please, again, let us know below. But as far as I know of, there's no other way. There is another company growing coffins, but they're in Holland. They're called Loop Biotech.
So North America right now that you know of, this is the game.
Right. I'm the only one on the market. Now, that being said, I need more competition.
Now, just to gain popularity. Like you're on the...
That's part of it. We need more people to do this.
Yeah.
And to stop that supposed traditional way of burial.
Yeah. I mean, before we learned about this, I had no idea that this was an option like that. So it's kind of like the adoption curve with anything, whether it's a technology or anything new.
Correct.
You know, you're kind of here on the beginning of that curve, and if it's to become mass adopted, which not all competition is bad competition, like there's good competition to educate. So as it gains popularity, you know, everyone gets busier.
Correct.
It's just like, you know, if it's dentistry, everyone has teeth. There's usually not enough dentists there are for a number of people that have dental problems, but same with you, like eventually everyone's going to need a service at the end of their life. So there's no shortage of need for this. It's just education too, and adoption.
And oh, by the way, my coffin will biodegrade, even including the teeth, in less than 10 years. In fact, I think it's about closer to 3. Okay. And I'm going to prove that whenever I exhume my old dog Rabbit.
Yeah.
And he's got those big old canines. And whenever I can't find him, I'll be able to say and demonstrate with the power of mycelium.
Okay. All right.
Now, we grow our coffins very much like we grow our mushrooms. In fact, this kind of is a great segue just to right here. You guys don't even have to go anywhere. This is one of our, these are 2 of our batch mixers. Now, I'm very happy to say that these are one of our 2 batch mixers. This is a pneumatic bagger, and then this is actually the only batch mixer. But this is a gravity-fed batch mixer. And we simply step on the pedal, this can goes back, what's inside here falls into the can comes forward, and then we put a bag underneath of it and catch the substrate that we've mixed up. Now the same happens with the air pneumatic bagger. We step on a little pedal. The only difference is it shoots out. In fact, it shoots out so quick that you have to hold on the bag with both hands.
It's like a rodeo. You gotta hang on.
Oh, yeah, very much so, because you're going for a ride. And it's going to be a wet ride at that if you're not holding that bag right. But this produces blocks quicker than what the individual can keep up with it. Okay. Which is great news for us, because really you talked about a batch earlier. Yeah. We, depending on the substrate, for our gourmet mushrooms, we do it in batch of 60. Okay. For our alternatives to concrete plastic insulation and coffins, which, by the way, I was standing right next to my insulation over there, with 10-foot sheet of insulation that I've grown.
That's for like
building insulation.
So I'm going to ask, what's your R value on that?
Great question, Brent. Okay. So that actually has an R factor of 7 per inch.
Okay, so now, that's a 3-inch panel?
3.5. So it's designed to fit in between the studs of a new construction home.
R21.
24.5.
24, okay.
And there's a YouTube video of me trying to burn my insulation And well, actually, at the time, it wasn't insulation. It was my proof of concept for a satellite I want to launch in space. Okay. I still plan on doing that. But I took that proof of concept for my satellite, AKA my insulation, and I had a butane torch. And I'm burning away at this thing for like 5 or 10 minutes, and there's ice cream in the very front. And when I took my finger off the torch after like 10 minutes, the flame goes away.
Huh.
Know any other insulation does that?
No, it'll keep festering and
right.
smoldering, yeah.
So this will kind of smolder depending on how long and the heat factor.
And that's probably more the base. Like that's more the medium in the middle versus the
mycelium, correct.
Yeah, right.
And if you just lightly missed it, it will, it's out completely. Huh. Okay. So it has a high flame.
It's a high thermal rating.
Yes.
Okay.
And at 24 and a half inch or 24 and a half R factor for insulation, I hope to build that.
And you don't
business.
get itchy because you're not putting fiberglass or something in.
And it's not like rock wool that's taking, that's not necessarily the best thing for us. I use rock wool as well. It's a great product, but also another it's not environmentally friendly to use. Right. So that company will be called Setas Renewables or Setas Insulation. But first I got to get Setas Eternal Living up and running first.
One thing at a time.
Right. Well, although I do have Setas mushrooms right now as well.
I was going to say, it seems like it's not been one thing at a time, but that's great though, because you're constantly thinking and innovating like, what can I use this with? Yeah.
Success doesn't come alone. Right. You know that.
Right. Yeah, sometimes, more often than not, their ideas are better than mine, and they have to tell me like, we should try this, and it ends up being awesome. So I'm sure that's with you guys too. Like a team member will come up and say, why haven't we tried doing it with this?
Right.
Because they're working with it every day too. So like, I'm sure they think of things like, we could definitely like put it in to use for this. Change, whatever, change an industry, even if it's small to start, for anything.
Yeah, people might be tired of hearing this word, but diversity or diversity of thought, it's extremely important.
Otherwise, you're in like an echo chamber.
You cannot innovate, correct.
Right.
It's impossible to innovate anything. It's impossible to create something new if you're not taking risks. And you won't take risks if you're in your own echo chamber. Right. You won't think of a different way to do things. So unfortunately, whether you like it or not, you do have to work with other people.
And sometimes they have to tell you,
demographics.
We're not doing that or we are doing that. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And my Latino wife tells me things all the time, which I don't agree with her sometimes, but she has merit in most everything that she says, as does everyone else.
That's it. You got to listen to the wife.
Well, if you want to have a happy life, you do.
Definitely. All right, so let's move on to the next phase of this.
Yes.
So
we've made our 60 bags of our gourmet mushroom substrate bags. Or we've made 40 bags. Now our 40 bags for our alternatives are only 8 pounds in size, and you'll see one of those here in a little bit. Whereas our mushrooms that we grow are in 10-pound bags. Okay. So now to make 60 of those 10-pound bags using this machine takes one person 8 hours.
Wow.
That machine, one person, 2 hours.
Okay.
It's almost paid for itself, and I haven't had that machine even a year yet.
Right.
So super excited to have that machine.
And it's so simple. Well, it looks simple.
Fairly, yeah, there's a little bit more complexity.
It's a lot less mechanical than this, though, yeah.
And this Bad Bear, it needs a lot of maintenance. A great deal of maintenance, whereas the other one doesn't. So it's another cost savings for us.
Yeah.
But once we knock out those 60 bags, then we come into sterilization. Now in sterilization, that is exactly what I said. We are sterilizing our bags. In fact, I probably should have had this out of here for you all because this is the bags that we were talking about earlier. We make 10 of these bags or 60 of these bags at a time. So there's 60 bags that are sitting in here waiting to go into our sterilizer. Okay. Now right now.
Those aren't sterilized yet.
Actually, that one is just finished. Okay. I need to switch that one over.
Oh, I meant the bags on the shelf. They've not been sterilized.
No.
Okay.
These are been unsterilized, and Once they are sterilized, they'll go into our lab. But
Okay.
let me back up. So we'll take our 60 bags, we will load them into our sterilizer, and this one hasn't been turned on yet, but this is a 130-gallon barrel or drum. And we filled that with our 60 bags, and then we'll close it. Now, this is a key apparatus here. This is my environmental controls. Now, a lot of people might think, oh, this is for your dryer, for your laundry. Well, what this does is it's got see these 4 little holes here? Well, those 4 little holes let off steam. And that steam, if I don't take it out of here, it stays in this room. Well, this machine we turn it on for 18 hours. And after 18 hours, this room turns into a rain cloud.
It's a sauna.
Oh, yeah, it feels wonderful. And it drips from every single place you can imagine. Yes, right. So that's why we have to exhaust out as much of the air as possible. Yeah. And that simply goes outside. Yeah, we cook that at about 200 degrees for 18 hours. And then after 18 hours, we take it and put it into our mycology laboratory.
Okay.
So there's 2 doors on the other side of this. One door has a hoist, and there's actually a can inside that we go in and pick it up, and it takes all 60 of these bags out. Okay. And this one we unload one by one. Really, there's no time benefit, and in fact, it doesn't really save me in labor. So it wasn't necessarily one of the best innovations.
It was cool at the time, though.
Right, exactly. But we have more cool innovations that we'll show you. Yeah. But we're going to go up the stairs here. You want to shut this? If you can, that'd be great. And then we'll just have you come over to the side here. So here you get to see inside the laboratory. So we'll take it from, and feel free to come up close if you need. We'll take it from that sterilizer that you see down there, and we'll bring it out and put it onto the shelf. Once it goes onto the shelf, then whoever's doing our lab work. Now, this is our mycology laboratory. Okay. Inside our mycology laboratory, it's what I call the cleanest air in the tri-state region. This is a 3rd in a series of HEPA filters. In fact, it's triple HEPA filtered, UV filtered, and carbon filtered air. Okay. That's why I say it's the cleanest air in the tri-state region. Now that filter that you see on the wall there, it's roughly a 2x4 filter. It's like an $1,800 filter.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that's why we have so many other filters before that.
That's at the end of the filtering stage,
correct.
Right?
And
you're catching rocks in the beginning, and then you're
very
catching
much so.
microbes at the end.
Correct.
Right.
And now some people say, why do you have 3 HEPA filters? Well, it's because I got a good deal on filters, and they just all happen to be HEPA filters. But once somebody goes into the lab, and they will take, and I'll show you here in the next room, we have liquid mycelium and we have our Petri dish. So we're actually going from the Petri dish to growing our mushrooms. Okay. So we command the entire life cycle, which actually it kind of goes back to talked to you about our mushroom jerky. There are several stages of the mushroom life cycle, and we capitalize on every single one of those. In fact, that's another reason why I tell people, because the mushroom farmers, there's more than one revenue stream for a mushroom farm, and that's more than just from the mushroom. It's from the alternatives. I even sell my compost. So literally, the stuff that we're throwing away,
you're capitalizing on it. Yeah, I mean, but someone can use it. You're not wasting it and just dumping it out. Yeah.
Right. So I tell you and everyone that because we need more mushroom farmers. This is something that you can do at home, starting in your garage. Exactly.
Well, that's how you started doing it 5 years ago now.
Exactly. Yeah. So I encourage people, less than 2% of the working population, so we're talking like less than 700,000 people, I believe, are farmers. So out of the whole U.S.
And it's dwindling.
Right.
Right.
And guess what? Less than 2% of those farmers are mushroom farmers. So it's a very small community that we're dealing with. I tell you this because we know pretty much everyone in the community, or if you don't know that next person, you know someone who does. And we actually share. We share more information than any other industry I've worked in. I worked in the intelligence community for over a decade where we share nothing. And now I work into an industry where we share everything. In fact, I've had so many other mushroom farmers where we share our secrets too. What other industries do you know of that they freely share insider secrets?
You got to pay for this, or
Right.
you have to be in the inside for this. Versus someone else is starting up, they can't get to where they need to be without you sharing information to them.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I encourage you, if you want a great, in this gig economy that we work with, want a great gig job, start a mushroom farm. Work with your local chamber of commerce. Here locally, we've got the CVBA, Cumberland Valley Business Alliance, of which I'm proud to be a member of, as well as a member of our Rotary. Both of those groups are great ways for us to get involved in our community. And I encourage all mushroom or wannabe mushroom farmers to get involved in your community because, again, success doesn't come alone. And there's a lot of what we do as mushroom farmers that's a lot of hard work, and you'll feel like you're on your own. So you have to sometimes get off your farm. Well, heaven forbid, I don't like getting off my farm, which is amazing. You guys came here. But you do have to get off the farm, and you got to go talk to people. Because that's how I come up with other ideas to alternatives to concrete, plastic, and insulation, was going out and talking to people. So, which is kind of one reason why I'm talking to you all today.
Yeah. Well, it's just education. You have to educate.
Almost everything, well, at least for me, that's my biggest job here at Setas. I don't really do the lab work. I don't do bags anymore. I don't harvest fresh mushrooms. It's education. And for my job, that's a full-time job.
Yeah. Awesome.
So onward for more education. So hopefully it won't be too loud here. Let's try to turn off a couple of fans. So we've got a lot of fans in here circulating around because mushrooms love air, absolutely love oxygen, especially here in incubation. Now, here in incubation, we take things, this is our grain spawn, and we're gonna swap places really quick. All right, very good. So this is a Petri dish I was talking about, as well as our liquid agar. Now you'll notice here on the Petri dish, look at those little bad bear mushrooms growing.
Oh, yeah.
So they will grow even inside the Petri dish. We try to use the fungus before it fruits the mushroom. Now the mushroom, that's the fruited body of fungus.
Okay.
Now, here in this bag, this is reishi mushrooms. Now you'll notice that's growing in the bag. This is one of the few mushrooms that we actually grow inside the bag. A lot of them we take over into our fruiting chamber in the other side of the barn. But reishi, so I've told you about how we use it. You can also grow what's called reishi leather. Yes, leather. In fact, this leather that you can make with this mushroom is softer, stronger, and more durable than cowhide, using less than 1/10 of 1% of the amount of water needed to grow actual cowhide. Yes. So the fact that it's lighter, softer, more durable, less resources. Why aren't we having more people do this? Yeah. In fact, Adidas has what they call a mushroom sneaker. They're almost always out of production because they don't have enough people to grow reishi leather. So they call it vegan leather or myco leather. Reishi leather, there's different names for it. But all of it, it's another reason why we need more mushroom farmers to grow more leather, as well as other alternatives. But so we'll take that, the Petri dish, and we will cut a wedge, much like a pizza, several slices out of there. And we will take one of those slices and we'll throw it into, this is probably where we're gonna swap places again. So we'll take one of those wedges and we'll throw it into the bag here. And it will slowly grow out. Now this, I can tell by this one that we used liquid agar instead of a wedge from the Petri dish.
Okay.
And we take liquid agar in a big syringe and we put it, before we seal it up, and we inject it all full of that liquid mycelium. And that's how I can, because it's so evenly grown, as well as it's a lighter growth.
Versus just a concentrated
exactly.
spot. Yeah.
So it takes a little bit longer to grow it out when we grow it on the grow it from a Petri dish than from liquid culture.
So what's the difference between, or why would you do one where you cut a wedge or one where you spray liquid agar into the...
So liquid agar, it's more of about technique.
Okay.
It's much easier to, so inside this dish, it's like Jell-O.
Yeah.
In fact, that's really what it is. It's Jell-O inside, just doesn't have the added flavor, colors, and sugar.
Is it the same as they would do when you do like the swab on your hands and then you grow the bacteria in the similar medium in that dish? Okay.
So it's very easy to grow on the Petri dish. And when you have some go bad, well, you only have a little Petri dish go bad.
You didn't waste a whole...
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
So and there's more technique that needs to be done, more things, more equipment you need for the liquid agar, as well as you need a clean environment to make it all in. Whereas the Petri dish, it's much easier to do in a still air box, or we have the benefit of our laboratory.
Right. Okay. All right. I just wondered.
No, great question. Thanks, Brent. Yes. Right. The liquid agar is much, I think it's quicker for us. We can harvest, it colonizes quicker. Then once this bag is fully colonized, so this would be like a fully colonized bag.
Oh, wow.
Okay, now, this is lion's mane growing here. But once this bag's, and in fact, we probably wouldn't use this actual grain spawn, because once it gets this jelly in here, it's not the most viable product. It's a little on the mature side, if you will, much like me, a little on the mature side. But this one's a little bit better. This one is good enough. You can see how that's all white. It's white enough, and we would simply break this apart and then put about half a cup worth of this grain spawn in with our larger substrate bags. Okay. And we just throw that in there, and then we mix it up, where then it sits on the shelf for about three weeks, depending on everything depends on the variety or species of fungus or mushroom that we're working with.
Right.
Oysters typically sit in here for about 3 weeks at a time, whereas our reishi will sit in here for 6 months before it starts growing. Yeah. So this is probably closer to about 7 months worth of growth.
Wow. Okay.
So it's been sitting in this room for 7 months.
Dang.
Right.
Okay.
But our oysters are in here for about 3 weeks.
They're much quicker.
And they're off on the other side.
Gotcha. Okay. Huh. So what is this? What is the jelly material?
It's a fat.
Okay.
So mushrooms.
They just get old and fatty.
Right. Okay. They are so much like humans.
All of us. Yeah.
In fact, fungus likes to breathe in oxygen, gives off carbon dioxide. Same with the mushrooms. Breathe in oxygen, give off carbon dioxide. In fact, you're going to see, whereas in the fruiting chambers, we actually have carbon dioxide extractors in each one of our fruiting chambers because of that very reason. We want them to be as healthy as possible, and so we give them as much oxygen as possible. Right now, in these individual bags, they're in their own microclimate, microenvironment. So the only thing we have to do is make sure that they're getting fresh air.
Yeah. Which is why you have all these fans
running?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
So they're very much like people, where they're breathing in oxygen, letting out carbon dioxide.
Oh, and they're picky like people too. They don't like the same conditions all the time. They need a little variation in life. Okay. And they really don't like to eat the same food all the time.
Or they get bored.
Right.
Okay.
Which is why we have one mushroom that actually is known for growing out of ants' heads. And we'll see that here in a little bit.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, do you want to move on to that
Yeah,
next
absolutely.
part? I know we mixed up some bags in here. Is that all right?
Oh, you're fine.
Okay.
So I took this off not just so you can see our slide. Yes, we like to have fun. We like to bring all the kids over so they can go sliding down our slide. No, not really, actually. We don't let any kids go on there. That goes right to our compost pile. So the final act of our grow kits goes down the slide. But the reason why I stopped to show you this compost pile, this isn't your typical compost pile. A lot of compost piles take, on average, 2 to 3 years to compost. I make compost, or we make our own compost in about 3 weeks. We're able to do that because we give it the right amount of oxygen, we give it the right amount of food, and we give it the right amount of water. So let me run those down for you real quick. So the oxygen, I've got a little bouncy house blower. You might be able to see on the right-hand side there. There you go. Keep going around. Just see that little box of the bouncy house blower in there. Now that blower comes on once every half hour for 1 minute. And the reason why, back to being a researcher and why I have a PhD, I have this one gentleman in Germany who's done a great deal of mushroom research that I leverage. And he found that the biological activity in a compost pile drops off after about a half hour of being covered or put into the pile. Unless, of course, you give it oxygen so it can continue to breathe, because those protozoa, nematodes, and other
microbiology,
right, microbiology, they're a lot like us. They need water and air. So we pump air in every half hour to keep the biological activity at its
So if it's
best.
not getting invigorated, it just gets dormant.
Correct.
In about 30 minutes time.
And that's a static compost method where it just sits there for 2 to 3 years, and the pressure of gravity helps to turn that into compost.
This is much
Here,
more.
right. We give that air every half hour, and then we give it water. That's another key piece. And we give it, we water it or mist it for a half hour every single day. And then our mushroom substrate that's left, that happens to be the right food. So like anything that wants life, you give it the right food, the right air, and the right environment, and it will thrive.
Nice.
So that's how we make our mushroom compost in 3 weeks.
And that's the end game there. That's the final, as you said, that's normally what was considered a byproduct. Now you're using that as a compost.
Correct.
To buy for gardens or for whatever.
Yeah, and it's amazing for your gardens. In fact, tomatoes you'll probably double the size of your tomatoes. At least you'll double the size of your harvest just by using mushroom compost. Now, that mushroom compost, and before we got started here, I talked about how every plant that you hold up and you can see and hold the roots.
You were talking about that at the beginning,
It's called hypha, is at the end of that root structure. Well, hypha is what bonds mycelium to the plant structure. All plants and trees need mycelium and hypha to live. It extends the root structure of the tree and plants. So that's why you want to make sure that your garden has a good mycelium mix in with your garden material. So that way you're giving it the proper nutrients and what it needs to thrive in life.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's not just the compost you buy from the Lowe's or like your box stores. You actually need to build your underground ecosystem basically for things that you see above ground to be flourishing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, you'll notice here on this farm, in fact, Ed, right?
That's Joe.
Joe. Sorry, Joe. Joe just took
You can call him Ed, though.
Yeah, Joe just took a nice deep breath. Yeah. The reason why I'm pointing that out is because when you take a deep breath here, you don't smell any poo.
Yeah, that's not like, we were talking about that before we came down yesterday. It's not like when you go through
Kennett
Avondale.
Square, correct.
Kennett Square, yeah.
Kennett Square smells like a barn.
Right.
And I'm proud to say that we do not grow any of our mushrooms on poo. So I say that because you can get mushroom compost with or without poo. It's not the poo that actually makes the mushrooms grow bigger.
Okay.
Or excuse me, that makes the vegetables in your garden grow bigger. It's the mycelium. So just
Gotcha.
something to be, now the poo has definitely beneficial nutrients in there, but it won't be able to absorb those beneficial nutrients
Without
the right amount of hypha and mycelium.
Okay. Well, now I know. So it's not just, I think that's the first time we've had poo talked about on our or our show too as well. So
Nice. Glad
good.
to be a first.
We're checking a lot of boxes today.
Very
That's
good. Glad to hear it.
And then Ed's gonna follow us too. Yeah. We're gonna call him Ed from now on too. Joe just got a new name. So this is your form.
Correct.
Right?
So now you'll notice this form, it's in 4 sections. And then this would be the centerpiece of a form that fits down in there to represent what would be the human.
Yeah.
Now, we stuffed this full about 2 inches all the way across.
With your medium?
With our substrate.
Substrate, okay.
And it will sit in here for 5 days. Actually, it'll sit in there.
Okay.
In this for 5 days. And then we will simply take the center piece out, actually we take the other sides off. The centerpiece is one of the last things to come out. Now, the reason why we have this in 4 pieces and that in 2 pieces is because when we first started and they were all one piece, well, that's a lot of moisture surface area that it's like a hydraulic compression.
Okay.
And so now you have the force of all of that surface area that's trying to hold on to that liquid and doesn't want to release it. So we had to, this was a big learning. So here you go, kids. This is one of my first industry secrets, that we made this into multiple pieces so that way the coffin would actually come out of the mold without breaking.
Yeah, I'm sure you learned the hard way too.
Multiple times. Multiple times. In fact, before we did this, we used to have what we call these 2 tank bars. This is what the big thing that you'd use to change the track of an actual tank. We would have 2 grown men and 2 tank bars, and they'd try to hoist it up out of here. And that's how much force that they were working against.
Wow.
So simply by breaking this into individual sections, you decrease the amount of volume that you're working against, or surface area and volume that you're working against, so it can come out of the mold.
Nice.
Yeah, very key tip there. And over here, now these are our pet coffins. Now our pet coffins, and this is just an example of a lid, but our molds are somewhat interchangeable. This is a small pet coffin lid, whereas this is a medium pet coffin lid. And then we take that other medium and put it up to that medium, and then we get a large pet coffin lid.
So you don't need 3 molds for 3 products. You have
2 molds.
You have like a modular system.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I'd like to get to someday once we get some better molds in. But for right now, the recycled foam, some 2x4s, and plywood and screws. And plastic and tape. That's what we're using for our molds.
That's what, it works though, so.
Yeah.
And you're using materials, like you said, you're recycling some.
Correct.
Nice.
Now, right behind you, this is one of our latest innovations, so you don't have to move much anywhere. Yeah. Although this conveyor belt, this is a gravity-fed conveyor belt. It goes all the way up to our fruiting chamber, to incubation.
The room we were in.
Yes, just came here. And so we will, once that block is fully colonized, we'll throw it on our conveyor belt, and it comes right down here into our fruiting chamber.
Okay. I'm guessing that was installed after many trips back and forth.
Yeah. So it would take because we're putting in 120 to 180 blocks a week in here. And we can only put about, I think, 30 blocks on one large rack.
Okay.
And then you have to take that, carry it down the stairs, put it on the rack, bring it over here, Notice the floor is a little uneven.
It's a barn. Yeah.
So we were constantly breaking rack wheels,
Okay.
which breaks the rack. And then the amount of labor, it was taking about 4 hours worth of labor every week just to shuttle.
Back and forth.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas now I have one person that puts it on a conveyor belt and is done in about an hour.
Can't beat that.
Yeah.
And it's not as backbreaking. Back
Correct.
and forth and yeah.
And we sourced the conveyor belts locally. It's like $7, or it was a 7-foot segment. I think I got for $10 a piece.
Nice.
Yeah, it was all said and done. It was like $300 worth of equipment that paid for itself in about 4 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say just a few days worth of time.
It was incredible.
Perfect. Well, that's awesome.
Now, Brent, I want you to go ahead and try to open that door.
Okay. Well, I could tell by your initial.
Right.
Yeah, that's a suction.
That is just negative air pressure.
Okay.
So in this room, we're sucking out about 1,200 cubic feet per second.
Okay.
Or no, 1,200 cubic feet per minute.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you're not really going to feel it inside, but when trying to open those doors,
There's a vacuum.
right above here, I've got 3 fans into the side of our barn that goes outside, blows the air. What it's sucking out is air that has a lot of spores.
Okay.
In fact, it was some ungodly number, but the mushroom, like a 1-pound mushroom, it gives off tens of pounds of spores or something like that in its few weeks of life.
Yeah.
And across the earth, in fact, this is on Fantastic Fungi. If you were to take the surface layer of Africa, that's how much in spores are coming out of mushrooms across the whole planet every year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's mind-blowing.
Right.
Huh.
So I say all that because we're sucking out a great deal of
Yeah,
spores.
that's mind-blowing.
It's going outside into the field, which helps to promote the growth of other living
I'm
things
sure you get
in
a
our
bunch
field.
out there too, yeah.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So head on. Working against me. So this is one of our 6 fruiting chambers. Fruiting chamber number 2 is for our lion's mane. So there's some beautiful lion's mane right there. Now, it's a little hard to see. I'm trying to see if there's... Oh yeah, here, come on over here. Or stay there, I'll bring this out. So, now you notice lion's mane. See how I was talking about it's hairy?
Yeah.
Lion's mane. Now, you'll know when this is ready to harvest when you have, for an adult male, about a week's worth of growth, facial hair. That's about when that's ready to harvest.
Okay. So when it gets a 5 o'clock shadow, or a little longer.
A little bit longer.
Yeah.
You're ready to harvest lion's mane.
Okay.
This is it's a really beautiful mushroom. You find it just like this out in the woods all over here in Pennsylvania and much of the U.S. And if you don't like mushrooms, but you want the health benefits, you can get into a capsule format or in powder. And you can put the mushroom powder really in anything, and the flavor totally disappears. You'll never even know it's in your spaghetti sauce or eggs or
Right, but you get the
meatloaf or
benefits
anything.
of
Correct.
the same as just eating it like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, in back, see that white tube right there?
Yep.
That is my carbon dioxide extractor.
Gotcha.
So now there's a little bucket at the bottom that's collecting because the moisture in this room, right now it's at 67.9% humidity. It's set to go from 76% humidity at the most, or at its highest point,
Yeah.
to, and then I have these to vary by 10 points.
Okay.
So meaning it goes down to 66% humidity, and then it kicks on. So these are my humidifiers, and just stay there for 1 second. I will get so you can see. These are our ultrasonic misters.
Okay.
And these things shake really much more than my hand, and not near as much. But when they shake, they turn water into a mist.
Okay.
And then that box would fill up all with mist. But I've got a little 120 millimeter fan on the side that when it comes, it stays on all the time, and it's constantly blowing up through this pipe. Again, the fan's here on the side, but there's no other exit. So it has to blow the humidity into the fruiting chamber. And when that air is not humidified, it's simply blowing in fresh air or oxygen into the fruiting chamber for it to grow. Now, because of that moisture level, what's going into that vent, what looks like an air dryer vent, it's really humid air.
Okay.
And at some point, it mixes with the outside, which is at a different humidity as well as different temperature. At some certain points in times, that will mean that there's a lot more moisture in that hose, and it goes down to the bucket. However, the bucket, it captures the water and it naturally dissipates the water that's in that bucket. So really, it only goes in there to just kind of hang out for a
So
little
you'll
while.
see that hose at different heights?
No, the hose doesn't change it, but
okay.
the water inside the bucket
The
will.
water level will change.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Huh.
Now, one thing I'd like to point out is you'll notice I have a little tarp, or what I call a diaper on here. In fact, when I first made this farm, or built this farm, well, depends on how I say I built it. Actually, we've got something I'm going to show you later on. This farm was built in 1911.
Yeah.
So I've only built a small part of it. But whenever I moved our mushroom farm here, I was putting down these OSB floors. And I had other mushroom farmers saying, dude, what in the world are you doing? You're nuts. How can you grow mushrooms on a place that has wood floors? Your floors are going to constantly be rotting out. Well, that'd be correct if my floors were always wet. They're not always wet because of the diaper.
Right.
So for those that want to start in their home that are worried about being too moist or having an environment that they can't control, they can easily control that by simply putting in a tent and making your own little environment.
Gotcha.
So you can actually get away with wood floors, although
You just need a diaper. Yeah.
Right. Now, concrete would make it easier for your cleaning.
Right.
Which, by the way, if you ever think you're going to be a mushroom farmer, I hope you like to clean, because frankly, that's what we do most on this farm.
More of your time spent cleaning. Yeah.
I would say 60% of my labor cost goes into cleaning.
Okay.
This bucket, humidifying bucket, that is cleaned every single week. This fan is cleaned every single week. That mini split head, of which I've got 3 mini splits currently on this farm, or in this barn, I should say. Yeah. And in fact, I'm very proud. I'm going to go ahead and open it. Look how clean it is. It looks like it's brand new. Yeah. That's how clean we keep this environment.
You have to have it almost at a medical level.
Very much so.
Because you don't want contaminants getting in. It can probably get out of control pretty quick too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And as well as mycelium has a couple of competitors. They are also fall in the fungus category. One is, but really more so in the molds.
Okay.
Black mold and green mold. Green mold is called trichoderma. Between the black mold and the green mold, those are its 2 biggest competitors.
Okay.
Its second closest competitor would be gnats, or these little tiny little flies. And thankfully, we've got that under control here. Potato bug, or not potato bugs, you can also have these little bugs that, they have the little antennas, little black things.
Okay.
Not starfish, or not, forget what they're called, nematodes of some sort.
Yeah.
But anyways, they love moist environments. Notice I have no bugs really around here because there's nothing for them to live on.
Right. There's no moisture laying around.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's going to be key with anyone that wants to start a mushroom farm, especially if you want to start one in your house.
Right.
If you want to start one in your house, this is the most dangerous area, if you will, in mushroom farming. Now we're in here without any masks. Much of my staff, or our staff, wears not just the N95 mask. We actually have full respirator masks, and we change out the filters every few months. Okay. Because if you breathe in too many spores into your lungs, it will cover the little hairs in your lungs, and your body won't let you breathe them in, and then you'll have a very hard time breathing.
Gotcha.
There is an actual disease or something I forget what it's called.
So we've all just stopped breathing in right now.
No, you'll be just fine.
That's the long term.
Correct. And long term being the key. You can even be here and suck a bunch of them in right now. You'll be over there by that pipe, but you'll be just fine when you wake up tomorrow morning.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
So I'll take you over to the other fruiting chamber so you get to see a picture over there. We got other mushrooms growing.
That's the ones that you were saying with the white speckles on top?
Yeah, those are chestnuts.
Chestnuts.
Blue oysters. King oysters. Most mushrooms double in size every day.
Wow.
Yeah. So tomorrow, what you see here today will be twice that big tomorrow. Yeah.
Huh.
Now there's some reishi that I was talking about that's growing out here.
They're even older.
And this is also reishi. The difference is this is our hemp that we use to grow for alternatives to concrete plastic insulation, whereas this reishi is we're growing on our substrate, and we grow these for medicinal purposes, where we will take the fruited body of the mushroom and we will put them into a water and alcohol extract for a dual extraction. And we mix reishi in with many of our tinctures.
Gotcha.
But we're constantly building out here at Setas mushrooms. In fact, that's what this door is here for. And okay, so I'm telling you all a secret. Don't come rob me. I will find you. I get cameras, by the way. But so I am a former U.S. Marine Army soldier, and I work in cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. Obfuscation is a word we use a lot. It means hiding in plain sight.
Right.
This is our cordyceps room, hiding in plain sight. Come on in. So this is some really fun expansion that we have going on. Now, here in this room, this is what we're going to be calling our dark room.
Okay.
What we're growing in this room is Cordyceps militaris. It's here and upstairs. We're going to go up there real quick. But this is an elevator that we've just finished building.
Oh, wow.
Now, that door takes you to the laboratory, our mycology laboratory we stopped at earlier in the tour. And this elevator, we need to be able to take product up and down. Now, cordyceps, they only need to be in darkness for about 5 days, and then they're in a lit room for 5 weeks, roughly. So we need roughly a 5-to-1 ratio. So you can imagine all of this being full of those grow bags that we have. And then upstairs will be 5 times as much. Okay. So the plan is to expand all the way across the barn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, these little Cheeto-looking things, this is called cordyceps or Cordyceps militaris. Now, 4 of these, about the size of my pinky, will give you as much energy equivalent to 4 large cups of coffee. Now, it does that because right on the very end, on the tips, it's so hard to see. I'm trying to find, yeah, you might be able to see, there's one right there, has a bunch of tiny little bumps. Mm-hmm. Now those tiny little bumps, that is called cordycepin. Earlier, we were talking about big pharma drugs.
Yeah.
Okay, there is actually a drug called cordycepin. I think it's made by Merck or something, one of those big manufacturers. But they take those little dimples or bubbles off of this mushroom, and then they repackage it for like, I think it's $800 for a 30-day supply of pills. We sell this mushroom for, right now it's $80 an ounce.
Okay.
But we're getting ready to lower our price to $60 an ounce because we've really able to grow.
Right. You've scaled a little bit.
Oh,
here.
very much
Yeah.
so. In fact, at the PA Farm Show, there was a big sign that says, mushrooms are America's #1 cash crop. This is really one of the many reasons why.
Okay.
Cordyceps militaris, $60 to $80 an ounce is about the normal retail price pretty much all across the U.S.
Yeah.
In California, it's closer to 80. Here in Pennsylvania, since we're one of the larger producers, there is a large producer up, I think Lancaster or Harrisburg way, called Cordyceps USA.
Okay.
They're the only ones that are anywhere close to our size.
Okay.
So these mushrooms, talked about the health benefits. Well, I haven't really talked about those yet. So gives you energy. It's great for pre and post workout.
Okay.
Pre-workout, about 20 to 30 minutes before your workout, and 20 to 30 minutes later, you will get enough energy you won't want to sit still anymore.
Okay.
Now, I say pre and post-workout. Post-workout, and I love the humidity coming across it.
Yeah.
This room, we keep it 62% humidity and about 68 degrees all year round. Now, back on the mushrooms. So it's great for pre-workout because of the energy, post-workout because it's the strongest anti-inflammatory we have.
Okay.
Now, all of y'all's parents would probably want cordyceps because they all have inflammation that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Or anybody that has arthritis of any kind, really, really good. It's a great mushroom.
Huh.
Now, not only does it give you energy and it's the best anti-inflammatory, if you have 4 of these before noon, or if you work night shift, about 4 of these, about 12 hours before you plan on going to bed, that night or that day, if you work night shift, you will have the best sleep of your life.
Huh.
And in fact, so much so, I've had people come back to me to get this just because it makes them sleep better.
Huh.
Now, I actually call this mushroom God's gift to humanity. Not just because it helps you sleep, gives you energy, the anti-inflammatory, as well as it helps with your circulatory system, respiratory system, fights off cancers, and the list goes on and on. There's many sources from the CDC, NIH, Veterans Administration, Harvard University, talking about the health benefits. But I call it God's gift to humanity because it's nature's Cialis. I give my wife 4 a day, keeps a smile on her face and mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got that one. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a fantastic mushroom to have.
Yeah.
And it has a nut-like flavor.
Okay.
So you can simply, in fact, it's one of the only mushrooms I recommend that you can eat raw.
Okay.
You should always cook your mushrooms, really any mushroom that you're going to have for a meal, because mushrooms have what's called lichen and chitin. That's what helps to make up lectin, which is the woody structure of a tree.
Okay.
Well, the woody structure of a tree isn't broke down well into your gut.
Right.
It's broken down by heat.
It expedites that process so you can digest it.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's why you should always cook your mushrooms. So if you see fresh mushrooms on the salad bar, just pass them on by. Tell them to go ahead and cook them and put them in your dinner.
Gotcha. Okay. Noted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and one of these, one rack will produce about a pound of cordyceps mushrooms per rack.
Okay. Wow. Huh. So then, now you've grown them all. Do you want to show us kind of like the final, like your end products?
Absolutely.
We saw the consumable. I'm sorry, not consumables. Building products and like your end of life.
Correct.
Coffins and stuff. Let's look at the edible stuff now.
Nice.
All
Very
right.
good. Okay. So the reason why we stopped here for a few reasons. One, so this is our oven that we made. And we simply take that door and we put it on wherever we need to trap in the heat.
And this is a low temperature oven as compared to what you'd think of as a normal oven.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you're not having to make sure it's, thermally equipped for 300, 400 plus
No.
like you would for your house. Right.
The most this ever sees is 185 degrees.
Gotcha.
And really we try to keep it down to 165 degrees.
Okay.
And
this is you use the same oven for all of your products you had. So
No.
the building supplies are in a different oven?
this would be where the coffins
Okay.
and building supplies would be.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we put it in here for about 18 hours. Now this box on the side, it's what we call a preconditioned room.
Okay.
So it should sit in here for about 1 day. So for the mycelium to continue to grow, and it will cover all of this.
Okay.
And we simply pull this out to where that preconditioned room. It's at roughly 65% humidity, roughly 65 degrees. That's why the AC unit's on the side. And so we control the temperature and humidity, give it the best environment for the mycelium to fully grow in.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then on the side here, I've got a certificate of appreciation from, so we are a certified green business by the Green American Council, as well as the Green Burial Council. Another group is given us their highest rating of 3 leaves.
Oh, wow.
For our My Coffin option. So very proud to, right out of the gate, to get their highest rating
Right.
For our My Coffin.
So real quick for the coffin, how many have you guys that you know of provided for burial that do you know the number off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's in fact, it's a super low number right
That's
now.
okay.
It's only one.
Okay.
One person has been buried in.
But it means it's
Now I've sold 5 others,
Okay.
thankfully. So it's $50. Someone puts down a $50 deposit. We take $500 off for the rest of their lives.
Okay.
Now, right now we sell a coffin for $24.95. That's $2,495. And then with the $500 discount, or putting $50 down, takes them to $19.95.
Gotcha.
Now my goal is to get to be sub $500.
Okay.
I want to get to a point where it's $495.
It's affordable for anybody.
So no one should ever take out a loan to bury a loved one.
Right. And the other thing that's amazing about it is, like, I was watching your segment from when you were interviewed before, they don't need to be embalmed before that process.
No, in fact, they shouldn't be.
Right.
The Jewish faith, they have to bury someone within 24 hours, no embalming. Muslim faith, they have 3 days, again, no embalming. It's really, it's an American thing.
Right.
That we didn't start doing until President Lincoln died. And right after the Civil War, we wanted to send him around the country so everybody could
tour. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody could see him. And this also gave time for us to give my brother and sister veterans to get them home. But in today's society, it's really not needed.
It's one of those things, like we said, like when you select a casket, you don't really know any different. It's just
Right.
it's what they put you. You just go through the process.
Correct.
So okay.
So, in fact, if somebody was to tell me that they were going to embalm them, be embalmed, I probably wouldn't sell them one of my coffins because it's going totally against what
When
we're
all
trying
those
to
chemicals will leach out
do. Correct.
into the earth.
Correct.
Yeah. As they decompose. Huh. Okay.
So we'll leave that here. We're going to quickly go into. So this is a cooler I've built.
Okay.
Very proud of this cooler. It looks like maybe simple on the outside, but on the inside.
Oh yeah.
So on the left, this is our mycelium for our coffins and other products. Here we've got, is there a chestnut? Look at those bad
These are
bears.
final. These are
These are going to
fully
go out for
harvested.
delivery tomorrow. All of this will be delivered tomorrow. There will not be a single drop of mushrooms in
Be
there.
cleaned out.
Look at the size of those things.
It's like they're massive.
These are Piapino mushrooms.
Now, are these going to be mostly for
Chefs.
Chefs to
Yes.
use? Yeah.
We are found in many fine establishments in the DC, Baltimore metro areas.
Gotcha.
In fact, our biggest clientele are country clubs.
Okay.
So another insider tip, another secret for many of you, especially you farmers of any kind. Why do I say that? Because a lot of the chefs at country clubs have never seen a farmer. And they would love to see a farmer. So if you're a small startup farmer and you're trying to figure out where to go get business, hit up the country clubs.
They're hungry for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very much so. Thank you for the pun, by the way. So you've got, here's our shiitake. And we have some chefs that don't want the stems because the stems aren't really edible.
Right.
So we take that off for them. And then we use the stems and we put that into our powder, which we'll be going over and show you our powder.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much set up anywhere. We'll just spin around real quick. So our cordyceps, we freeze dry our cordyceps. In fact, well, there were cordyceps in there. Now they're with there's. I know we got more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The ugly ones.
Oh, yeah, right. So the ugly ones I was just talking about. We take our ugly cordyceps, the ones that aren't really big and pretty, and we turn those into powder. Mm-hmm. So we really have no waste on this farm. We turn it into jerky, powder. There's no reason for us to get rid of mushrooms. Now, this is chaga mushrooms. This is the only mushrooms we don't grow here locally. And we have somebody forage for chaga mushrooms that we pay for.
Okay.
But chaga has tons of health benefits, and it's known for its immunity support and cancer-fighting properties. In fact, one of the strongest mushrooms, it's the highest in antioxidants to help fend off the creation of tumors. But we've got about 10 different varieties of tinctures. This one tincture happens to be lion's mane chaga, but we've got turkey tail. Now, turkey tail mushrooms is the most widely studied mushroom on the planet, with over 14,000 scientific studies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely amazing mushroom.
Very versatile.
More of it's versatile because of its cancer-fighting properties.
Okay. Huh.
So we're going to spin you around this side real quick.
It's a recurring theme.
Let's see if I got samples in here. This is our teriyaki jerky. Very proud of all of our jerky. I'm trying to get the pieces not too big.
It's tough like jerky.
Right, exactly.
Okay. That's not what I expected. But
There you go.
I mean, I would eat that. And
Now,
what mushroom is that again?
This is oyster mushrooms.
Okay.
All of our jerky is made using oyster mushrooms.
It's definitely not the texture I expected, obviously with a mushroom, but it definitely,
What were you expecting?
I don't know.
Ah,
Like nothing bad.
Right.
It was, I was surprised though. I mean, I knew.
surprised at how close it was to beef jerky, or
Yeah. I think the texture was almost identical to beef jerky, but I like how at the end, it's like smoother to swallow, I guess.
Right.
Once you're done chewing it, it seems like it has the longevity of chewableness, we'll make up a word,
Right.
as beef jerky, but then like when it's done, I think it goes down easier.
right?
Yeah, and the aftertaste is better.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Glad to hear
Yeah.
that. So now this is our. So that was our teriyaki. This is
good?
our Caribbean flavor. Oh, good catch.
Okay. Same mushroom.
Same mushroom, oyster mushrooms.
Okay.
Now, I typically do in this order of teriyaki, Caribbean, and then I do black pepper. Now, black pepper, it's going to stay on your palate much longer.
Yeah.
And take over your palate. That's why another reason why I save it for last.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also the black pepper It pairs very nicely with Hefeweizen
Okay.
for your beer drinkers and Cab Franc for your wine drinkers.
There you go.
I'll drink some more.
There you go.
All right, so that's. I like that flavor the best. Not that the other two
nice.
weren't good.
Right, oh yeah.
That's
yeah.
my favorite.
Okay, good.
I like the
You're
black
getting a
pepper.
bag before you go home.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting.
Thank you. So that was our first waste product that we turned into another revenue stream.
Gotcha.
And then this is our mushroom powder. So we've got lion's mane and cordyceps, or lion's mane by itself, lion's mane and shiitake.
And this is what you were talking about with the waste cordyceps. Or not waste, but the ugly cordyceps.
The ugly cordyceps, and so they're not so pretty like the ones in this bag.
Mm-hmm.
So we will turn them into powder, so we're not wasting our valuable resources.
Right. Nice. Nothing goes to waste.
No,
That's
absolutely
amazing.
nothing.
That's amazing.
And then right here behind you, this is our this is a commercial dehydrator that I built. This will handle 40 pounds of fresh mushrooms, lion's mane, shiitake, all our big mushrooms. We'll put 40 pounds of mushrooms in there at a time, and in 24 hours, it's dehydrated to the right consistency that we need.
Wow. Awesome. So from beginning to end, we've kind of taken the whole
Yes.
tour and seen what you do from getting your raw materials in to all the way to.
That was close.
We're good. So from beginning to end, though, we've seen you the processing from all your raw materials all the way to, an edible product or a building product or something that's for, like I said, a coffin for end of life or anything.
Right.
You turn a lot of different products out, and it's pretty awesome to see it, like from inception all the way through each stage.
On such a small footprint.
Yeah. Yeah. If you just go from the barn to here, less than an acre, from that area,
Correct.
like that's really all you're working on.
Yes.
That's amazing. So I appreciate you the tour, and I appreciate the free samples at the end. I feel like it was like when you go to the Hershey Chocolate World ride, and then we get to see, but we get to see a little bit more behind the madness of it all, and then we get a sample at the end, which was
Nice.
amazing, by the way.
Great. Thank you very much. Really
I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming today.
No,
Appreciate
thank you
it,
for
Matt.
the tour. That was awesome.
Glad to hear it.
All right.